Officer Jack Miller had just finished his late shift. He stepped out of his patrol car and made his way toward the front door of his house. The night was quiet, and the cool breeze brushed against his face. As he walked in, he heard his wife, Sarah, calling out to him from the living room. "Jack, you need to see this." Sarah's voice sounded shaky, almost afraid. Jack's brow furrowed as he closed the door behind him. His eyes met Sarah's, and he could see the worry in her expression. Sarah wasn't the type to get scared easily, so when she was nervous, it always made Jack concerned. "What's wrong?" he asked, taking a step toward her. "It's her again," Sarah said, her voice barely above a whisper. Jack's heart skipped a beat. He knew exactly who she was talking about. The strange little girl. For the past few weeks, a young girl, no older than 6 or 7, had been seen standing outside their home. Every time Sarah mentioned it, Jack thought it was just some harmless prank or a passing child. But tonight, Sarah was certain that the little girl was back again. Jack leaned against the kitchen counter, trying to shake off the feeling of unease creeping over him. "Are you sure?" he asked, his tone calm, even though his mind was racing. Sarah nodded, her eyes wide with fear. "I saw her standing at the gate, staring at the house. It was like she knew I was watching her, and she didn't move." Jack took a deep breath and walked over to the window. He looked out into the front yard, scanning the darkness for any sign of the girl. There was nothing there, just the shadows of the trees swaying gently in the breeze. He sighed, half relieved, half skeptical. "It's probably just a lost kid or something," Jack said, trying to sound reassuring. "I'll go check the yard. Stay here." "Jack, please don't go," Sarah pleaded, her voice trembling. Jack gave her a reassuring smile before heading outside. He made his way around the house, checking every corner of the yard. He even shined his flashlight into the bushes, but there was no sign of the girl. He stood there for a moment, staring at the empty street. The air was still, the only sound the rustling of leaves in the trees. Jack shook his head. Maybe it was just his imagination. Maybe Sarah had seen a shadow or a trick of the light. But as he turned to go back inside, something caught his eye. At the very end of the street, by the old oak tree, he saw a figure. It was small, almost childlike, standing still and motionless under the dim streetlight. Jack's heart raced. There was no mistaking it. It was her, the little girl. He quickly made his way toward her, calling out softly, "Hey, are you okay?" The little girl didn't respond. She simply stood there, staring straight ahead, her back to him. Jack's mind raced. What was a child doing out here alone at this hour? He took a few steps closer, but before he could say anything else, the girl slowly turned her head toward him. Her face was pale, her hair dark and unkempt, falling in strands around her face. But her eyes were the most unsettling part. They were wide, vacant, and empty, like she wasn't even really seeing him. "Are you lost?" Jack asked, trying to keep his voice calm. The girl didn't answer. She simply turned and walked away from him, her little feet barely making a sound as they touched the ground. Jack stood frozen for a moment, watching her retreat into the shadows, her small figure growing smaller and smaller as she disappeared into the night. He rushed toward the spot where she had been, but when he reached it, there was no trace of her. No footsteps. No signs that anyone had been there at all. Jack stood there, confused and uneasy. His breath came out in short bursts as he looked around. He had been so sure he'd seen her, but now there was nothing. Just the empty street and the silent trees. "Jack!" Sarah's voice broke through his thoughts, and he turned to see her standing in the doorway, her face pale. "Where did she go?" Jack swallowed hard. He didn't know what to say. He couldn't explain it. There was no logical reason for the girl to have disappeared so quickly. "I don't know," he admitted, walking back toward the house. "She was here. I saw her, but now she's gone." "Do you think she's okay?" Sarah asked, stepping forward and reaching for Jack's hand. "I don't know," Jack repeated, his mind racing. "I don't know who she is or why she's been showing up here, but I'm going to find out." As they stood there in silence, the weight of the situation began to settle over them. The strange little girl was no longer just an odd occurrence. It was something more, something they couldn't ignore. And Jack knew that he had to figure out what was happening before it was too late. The next morning, Jack couldn't shake the feeling of unease. The little girl's face was burned into his mind, her hollow eyes staring into him as she vanished into the night. He tried to go about his day normally, but it was impossible to ignore the strange events unfolding in his life. As the hours passed, Jack found himself more and more distracted. He would glance out the window at odd moments, half expecting to see the little girl standing in the same spot, watching the house like she had the night before. But no one was ever there. The street remained empty, peaceful. The neighborhood was just as it always was, quiet and serene. Too serene. Sarah noticed the change in him. She kept asking if everything was all right, but Jack didn't want to worry her further. She was already frightened enough. "I'm fine," he would say, forcing a smile whenever she caught him lost in thought. That evening after dinner, Jack decided to check the backyard. Maybe if he found a clue or two, it would make sense of what was happening. He walked out the back door, his footsteps echoing in the stillness. The sky was turning dark, and a few stars twinkled overhead. The house felt so silent, unnaturally silent. Suddenly, his phone buzzed in his pocket, snapping him out of his thoughts. It was a message from his partner at the precinct, Officer Rachel Stevens. "You wouldn't believe this. There's been a report of a missing child in the neighborhood. 7-year-old girl. The description matches exactly the one you've been telling me about. We need to talk. Call me." His heart skipped a beat. The girl, the same one who had been haunting his thoughts, was missing. Was there some connection between the strange appearances and the missing child? Jack quickly dialed Rachel's number, his fingers trembling slightly as he pressed the call button. "Rachel," Jack asked when she picked up. "What's going on? Why is the child missing?" Rachel's voice was tight with tension. "I don't know, Jack. It's strange. The girl's been seen around here, yes, but no one knows who she really is. I've been going through reports, and her parents say she's never gone missing before. But when we dug deeper, there's something even stranger." "What do you mean?" Jack's voice lowered. Rachel hesitated for a moment. "The girl's name is Emma. But get this, she doesn't have a birth certificate. No one seems to remember where she came from. The neighbors don't know her family, and the police can't track down anyone who's even seen her leave the house." Jack's mind raced. "So we have a missing child with no history." "Exactly. And now, I'm getting reports from other people around the neighborhood. The same little girl appearing and disappearing. And most of them are scared to even talk about it. People are afraid to go outside at night." Jack stood still, the phone pressed to his ear. This wasn't just some odd coincidence. The little girl, Emma, had been showing up at his house. Her appearances weren't random. There was something deliberate about them. But why? And why now? "I'm coming in," Jack said, his voice firm. "We need to investigate this. It's not just a coincidence anymore." As Jack walked back inside, his mind was swirling with questions. He had to tell Sarah what he had learned, but how could he? How could he explain the events that seemed to be getting stranger by the minute? Emma was missing, and now there were reports of her appearing to other people. Jack found Sarah sitting on the couch, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea. She smiled weakly when he entered but noticed the change in his expression immediately. "Jack," she asked, concern in her voice. "What happened?" He didn't want to scare her, but he couldn't hide the truth anymore. "Sarah, the girl, the one I saw last night, she's gone missing. And there's something strange going on." Sarah set her cup down, her face going pale. "What do you mean? Is she okay?" Jack ran a hand through his hair. "No. Her name is Emma. But no one knows who she really is. There's no record of her anywhere. Her parents say she's never been gone before, but I don't think that's the whole story. People around here are scared. Some of them have seen her, just like I did. But no one can explain what she's doing here. Sarah's eyes widened with fear. Are you telling me the little girl is? She's not just a lost child. Jack shook his head slowly. I don't think she is. I think there's more to it. Something isn't right about her. The weight of the situation settled heavily between them. Jack had always prided himself on being able to make sense of any case, but this one was different. This wasn't a simple missing child case. There was something supernatural, something terrifying, that they couldn't understand. We need to find out who she really is, Jack said, his voice firm, but he wasn't sure where to start. Sarah stood up, pacing nervously. Jack, be careful. I don't know why, but I have this awful feeling about this whole thing. I will, Jack promised, though he wasn't sure if he could keep that promise. But deep down, Jack knew one thing for certain. Whatever was happening with Emma, it wasn't something he could just ignore. He had to get to the bottom of it before it was too late. The next morning, Jack couldn't sleep. He had dark circles under his eyes. He kept thinking about the missing girl, Emma. Her pale face, her sad eyes, and how she kept showing up near his wife. Jack knew this wasn't normal. He was a police officer. He had seen strange things before, but nothing like this. He decided to visit Emma's house. It was an old brown house, 3 streets away. The garden was overgrown, the windows dusty. It looked like no one lived there. Jack knocked on the door. A tired woman opened it. Emma's mother. Her name was Mrs. Harris. Her hands were shaking. I'm Officer Jack, he said gently. I'm here about Emma. I need to ask you some questions. The woman looked up at him with watery eyes. You've seen her, haven't you? Jack paused. Yes, she's been appearing near my house, near my wife. Mrs. Harris suddenly started crying. She's not supposed to leave, she promised. Jack's heart began to beat faster. What do you mean? She promised what? Mrs. Harris didn't answer. Instead, she walked into the house and waved for him to follow. Jack stepped inside. The house smelled like old wood and medicine. Pictures covered the walls. Then she pointed to an old black and white photo on a shelf. It showed a man, a woman, and a little girl. The girl looked just like Emma. Same dress, same eyes, same cold expression. That's Emma, when she was alive, Mrs. Harris whispered. Jack's body froze. Alive? He asked. What do you mean? Mrs. Harris nodded slowly. Emma died 5 years ago. She drowned in the lake behind the school. But ever since then, she comes back. Jack's mouth went dry. Are you telling me your daughter is a ghost? Mrs. Harris didn't blink. She appears when she's angry, when something is wrong. The last time she appeared, something bad happened to the neighbor across the street. He died in his sleep. Jack stepped back. He didn't know what to believe. He had seen Emma with his own eyes. But she didn't look like a ghost. She looked real. Why my wife? He asked. Why is she near Sarah? Mrs. Harris sat down, her hands still trembling. I don't know, but when Emma shows up again and again, it means someone is hiding something. Jack was silent. Then Mrs. Harris gave him the photo. Keep this. Maybe she's trying to tell you something. Jack took the photo and left. His heart was heavy. He didn't believe in ghosts. But Emma was different. Too many things didn't make sense. That night, Jack showed the photo to Sarah. She stared at it for a long time. I've seen this dress before. Jack sat beside her. Where? Sarah thought for a moment. Last week, I had a strange dream. A girl in this same dress was standing in our kitchen. She didn't speak. She just pointed at the cupboard. Jack's eyes narrowed. Which cupboard? Sarah pointed to the tall wooden one near the sink. Jack walked over and opened it. At first, he saw nothing but dishes. Then something fell from the top shelf. It was an envelope. He picked it up. It was dusty and old. Inside was a folded letter. Sarah came close as he read it aloud. "I know what happened at the lake. I saw it. I tried to help, but it was too late. She slipped under so fast. I didn't tell anyone. I was scared. I thought it was an accident. But now she visits me in my dreams. I don't know what to do." There was no name on the letter. Jack looked at Sarah. "Do you recognize the handwriting?" She nodded slowly. "It's from the old lady who lived here before us. Mrs. Bennet." Jack remembered. Mrs. Bennet had died 1 year ago. Now it made sense. The letter was about Emma. Someone had seen her die. Someone who lived in this very house. Emma wasn't just appearing randomly. She was connected to this place. Maybe she was trying to show something. Maybe she was looking for justice or peace. That night, as Jack and Sarah sat quietly, a cold wind passed through the living room. The lights flickered. Then, a soft knock on the front door. Jack and Sarah looked at each other. Jack slowly walked over and opened the door. No one was there. But on the doorstep was a small wet footprint, the size of a child's. And next to it, a red ribbon, the same one Emma had been wearing in the photo. Jack picked up the red ribbon slowly. It was wet, cold, and tied in a perfect bow. Sarah stayed behind him, holding her breath. "This was in the photo," Jack whispered. "Emma wore it." Sarah nodded, her face pale. "Jack, she's trying to tell us something." "But what?" He turned the ribbon over. There was something stitched inside it, in tiny black thread. 3 letters. RLV. Jack looked confused. "What does this mean?" Sarah thought for a moment. "Wait. RLB, that's Robert Louis Bennet, Mrs. Bennet's son." Jack's eyes widened. "You're right. He visited once when she was sick. I saw his name on her medicine bottles." Jack rushed to his computer and searched Robert Louis Bennet. Within seconds, he found something. Robert L. Bennet, teacher at Lakeview Middle School. Jack's fingers froze on the keyboard. He worked at the school where Emma died. Sarah stepped back, her voice shaking. "Do you think he saw something too?" Jack stood up, heart racing. "No, I think he was there when it happened." The next morning, Jack went to the police station and quietly pulled Emma's old case file. It had been ruled an accidental drowning, and no one was blamed. But Jack noticed something strange. The file mentioned a witness, a young girl who saw Emma go into the water, but not what happened after. The witness's name was blacked out. Jack called an old friend who worked in school records and asked about Robert Bennet. He was told something shocking. Robert left the school the day after Emma's death. No warning, no notice, just disappeared. Jack's grip tightened on the phone. Where is he now? Address is old. Somewhere on Willow Street. Jack didn't wait. He jumped into his car and drove to Willow Street. The houses were small and quiet. Finally, he stopped in front of an old brick house. He knocked on the door. A man in his late 40s opened it. He looked tired, his eyes sunken. "Mr. Bennet?" Jack asked. "Yes," the man replied, confused. "I'm Officer Jack Green. I have questions about Emma Harris, the girl who drowned at Lakeview." Robert's face turned pale. He tried to shut the door, but Jack stopped him. "I know you were there. She's been appearing. She left a ribbon with your initials." Robert shook his head. No, she can't." Jack stepped inside. "She wants the truth." Robert fell onto the couch. He covered his face. "I didn't mean for it to happen," he whispered. "She was playing near the water. I told her not to go too far, but I turned away for 1 second. Jack listened quietly. "She slipped," Robert continued. "I ran in, but it was too late. She was gone. I panicked. I told my mom. She begged me to keep quiet. She said no one would believe me." Jack was angry. You let her mother think it was just an accident. Robert nodded, tears running down his face. I see her sometimes, in my dreams, always staring. Jack dropped the red ribbon on the table. She doesn't want revenge. She wants peace, but peace only comes with truth. That evening, Jack went back home and told Sarah everything. She drowned by accident, but he never told anyone. Her mother never got to say goodbye properly. Sarah looked at the photo again. So what do we do? Jack sat quietly. Then he picked up the letter and ribbon. We give these to her mother. She deserves the truth. Later that night, Jack visited Mrs. Harris again. Her hand shook when she saw the red ribbon. She gave this to me on her 6th birthday, she whispered. I looked for it after she died. It was missing. Jack handed her the letter. Robert wrote this. He told me what happened. Mrs. Harris read it slowly. Tears ran down her face. All these years, I blamed myself. But now I know. She looked up at Jack. Thank you. That night, something strange happened again. At 3 a.m., Jack and Sarah woke up suddenly. The house felt warm and calm. They looked out the window. Standing in the garden was the same little girl, Emma. She wasn't sad this time. She was smiling. Her red ribbon danced in the wind. And then, she disappeared. Not slowly, not with fear, but peacefully, like a child finally ready to sleep. Jack thought Emma's story had ended after he gave the ribbon and letter to her mother. But just 2 days later, something strange happened again. That morning, Sarah opened her inbox. There was an email with no name, no subject, just one attachment. It was an old school photo, and Emma was in it. But she wasn't smiling. In the background, standing behind the students, was someone unexpected. The school principal, Mr. Clark. His eyes looked cold. His hand rested on Emma's shoulder in a strange way. Sarah stared at it, her heart pounding. Jack, look at this. Jack took the laptop. Where did this come from? I don't know, Sarah whispered. But I think Emma wants us to dig deeper. Jack decided to visit Lakeview Middle School again. He met a teacher named Mrs. Daniels, who had been there for over 15 years. She was a sweet child, Mrs. Daniels said, always quiet. But in the weeks before her death, she looked scared, always looking around. Jack asked about Mr. Clark. The teacher paused. He retired suddenly 2 weeks after Emma died, she said. Said he was moving to a farm. No one heard from him again. Jack felt a chill. Did anyone ever investigate him? Mrs. Daniels shook her head. No, everyone believed it was just a sad accident. Jack asked if he could see the old files. After some hesitation, she took him to the storage room. Dusty cabinets lined the walls. Jack pulled out Emma's file. Inside were her grades, notes from teachers, and something shocking. A report Emma had written just a week before she died. It was titled, Why I Don't Feel Safe at School. Jack read the first line. I think someone is watching me. He says I'm special, but I don't like the way he looks at me. I told my friend, but she told me to stay quiet. Jack closed the file, his hands shaking. This wasn't just an accident. Someone knew. Someone ignored her. Back at home, Jack and Sarah sat in silence. She tried to ask for help, Sarah said, and no one listened. Jack nodded, but she's making sure someone listens now. He picked up the photo again. Mr. Clark might know more than Robert ever did. Sarah looked up. Do we know where he is? Jack stood up. I'll find him. The next morning, Jack used his police contacts to search for Mr. Clark. He was now living on the edge of town, on a quiet farm far from people. Jack drove there without telling anyone. When he arrived, Mr. Clark was sitting on his porch. He looked older, but his eyes still held the same cold stare. Mr. Clark, Jack said. I'm Officer Jack Green. I'm here about Emma Harris. The man didn't move. I don't talk about the past. Jack stepped closer. She's not letting you rest, is she? Mr. Clark's eyes twitched. I don't know what you're talking about. Jack held up the report Emma had written. She was afraid of someone. She wrote it a week before she died. Her teacher kept this hidden. You retired 2 weeks later. Mr. Clark stood up slowly. You don't know what you're getting into. Jack didn't move. Tell me the truth. For a moment, Mr. Clark's face changed. He looked tired, haunted. I warned her to stop snooping around, he said quietly. I saw her looking through my office. She found something. Jack leaned forward. What did she find? Mr. Clark didn't answer. He turned and walked into the house. Jack followed. Inside, the walls were covered in old school awards, photos, and one locked drawer. Jack noticed it right away. He stepped toward it. Mr. Clark didn't stop him. Inside the drawer were old letters and a locket. It was Emma's locket. Her mother had told Jack it was lost the day she died. You had this all along, Jack said in anger. Mr. Clark looked down. I didn't kill her. I swear. But I was there. I saw her go toward the lake. I told her to stay away. But when she slipped, I walked away. I didn't help her. Jack's fists clenched. You let a child drown, and you said nothing. Mr. Clark whispered, I couldn't lose my job. I was scared. Jack walked out without another word. He had the locket. He had the report. And now he had the truth. Emma had been left alone by adults who were supposed to protect her. But now her voice was being heard. That night, Jack placed the locket next to Emma's photo at home. He whispered, You're not alone anymore. And just like before, the house felt warmer, peaceful. For a moment, he thought he saw her again, standing by the stairs. She smiled. Then she vanished into the light.